So from September 15th until October 1st, I was running a contest, and the two teams that were named the most, they got their helmets purchased. So I've got to make a helmet purchase, and I asked people, what two schools do you want to see? And Oklahoma finished number 2.
Okay.
And the U finished number 1.
Yeah,
so we'll get the U up there next.
Oh,
so
yeah.
in Oklahoma for sure, and I'll probably buy some more.
Okay.
All right, man. It's Florida State week, Cam.
Indeed, it is.
And I know you don't care about the point spread. You want to come out of there with a 50-point win, a 1-point win, whatever it takes. But I heard like 13 today. So it's a pretty healthy point spread based mostly on what's happened at Florida State, although they finally got a win in the ACC last week. Let's go back to the North Carolina game, because obviously that's the big debut in terms of a starting spot for Mr. N'Kosi Perry. So this has been the long-awaited date that
yeah, I'm over here dancing and things. Yeah.
All right, Cam, your analysis of Mr. Perry's performance.
I mean, I think you got to go back to the FIU game before. Mark Richt said that the plan always was to play N'Kosi Perry starting in the third series against FIU and then see how things went. And then Miami scored touchdowns on his first 2 drives. And then he effectively Wally pipped Malik Rozier at that point. Wally Pipp, if you guys don't know that story, he had the longest baseball consecutive games played streak. And he took a day off for being sick, or his wife was giving birth to a baby or something like that for the Yankees way back when. And the guy who replaced him that day was Lou Gehrig. And Lou Gehrig never came out of the lineup again. So Wally Pipp is a thing where, you know, your job was there one day and literally gone the next. And that literally happened to Malik Rozier. Mark Richt, he spoke very highly of N'Kosi Perry from the FIU game, and he played very well in that game and showed the kind of talent that I've been talking about N'Kosi Perry having had for years. 2015, he was a freshman in 17 at Miami. So, 2015, 6A Player of the Year in the state of Florida. He was runner-up for 6A Player of the Year and like a quarterfinalist for Mr. Football in the state of Florida as a senior in 2016. Shattered records set by Dante Culpepper at his high school Ocala Vanguard. 6'4", he can throw the ball a country mile, he can run, but he doesn't really look to run. If you can tell, even from the FIU game when he was scrambling around and threw that lob touchdown to Lawrence Cager, N'Kosi Perry wants to run or move around to throw the ball, but if you give him a lane, he can take it. He really just has all the talent in the world. He finally ascended to the starting quarterback job, and he did really well. Obviously, against North Carolina, the numbers are not going to be eye-popping, especially since the defense got 6 turnovers and the defense scored 3 of them themselves with return touchdowns. So Miami only ran 46 plays of offense. They only threw the ball 12 times. I think it was 14 called passes total because there were 2 sacks in there. So, out of 46 plays, you have 14 pass plays. 12 of them were actual throws. One of them was an interception, but Mark Richt came out pretty emphatically and said that he thought that the receiver was interfered with on the ball down the seam route or post, whatever you want to call it, down the middle that ended up getting tipped around and intercepted. So, N'Kosi Perry, he got the team in and out of the huddle really well. He did all the operational things that Malik Rozier was getting praised for of, changing the protection and checking to a run play or checking to a pass play and things like that. But, his arm talent is incredible, especially as compared to Malik Rozier. His accuracy is impeccable. That touchdown to Darrell Langham on that little hide-and-go-seek double move route, you couldn't put it on a dime any better than that. So, N'Kosi Perry has great talent, and he's finally grown up, and he's showing that on the field. And I think that Miami's offense is going to maintain its, top 20 explosiveness, but then increase the efficiency. And that is going to make it even more explosive because you're not playing behind the stick so much. You're not really, struggling to convert things or to hit your markers of, okay, first down, I need to get 5 or more. Second down, I need to, do whatever landmark kind of a thing. I think in the North Carolina game, Miami only had 4 or 5 third downs because we're getting first downs on first and second down, which is fine. I don't need to get to the third down before I convert, get a new set of downs. So I'm very pleased to see N'Kosi Perry finally on the field. I'm really pleased to be validated for all the things that I've said and written over the last couple of years because, when you get 2 or 3 years down the road from, writing about N'Kosi Perry as a high school junior and then high school senior, and then he doesn't play his redshirt year, and then it's, getting into this year and, okay, he's suspended for the opener, he's not really playing in these other games, trumpeting the same thing. And I really believe what I've said. It kind of does get to be old, but yeah, I'm really excited to see him. I'm really excited to see the efficiency increase on the offense with the same or even better kind of explosiveness. And I think that can be a transformational move for Miami at quarterback. So, I thank Malik Rozier for the time that he spent as a stopgap, but I'm glad that gap was stopped and we turned it over to a player with better talent so we can move on and forward. So yeah, I'm really pleased with N'Kosi Perry finally stepping up.
The stopgap was stopped. So that gap was stopped.
Exactly.
Very well put. We've got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U. You can join him and the rest of the crew right there at stateoftheu.com, covering Miami sports, Miami football, of course, front and center, especially on this week with Florida State lined up at home on Saturday afternoon. You have the pulse of the fan base. You are a fan alumni and also cover the team. You've got all the boxes checked to a certain extent. Besides the obvious ecstasy of the fan base, 90 some odd percent of them being pleased with the decision to go with Perry, are there any specific things that are being said out there that would pinpoint a little bit more specifically, the euphoria of, hey, we finally got our guy on the field and we can finally maybe cut loose and see what this team's capable of doing on offense more consistently?
No, I mean, I just think that it's really that. I can't think of any one person who said any one specific salient thing. But yeah, it's really just, being it. You don't kind of realize what you have until it's gone, kind of a thing, but in like a negative-ish way. Because like when N'Kosi, he ran around, he had like a 40-something yard pass to Mike Harley that if it was a little bit more accurate, Harley would have scored. But on the play where he's running around for that pass, Malik Rozier wouldn't even thrown that ball. He wouldn't even come to that third or fourth read. But then you see that and you're like, oh, wait, I didn't know that existed. I never had sushi in my life until my college girlfriend when I was 21. And I'm like, oh, it's raw fish or it's eel or blah, blah, blah. And then I had it. I was like, wait, whoa, I've been missing. I didn't know that this existed. And I think that kind of a thing, that discovery is what we're seeing with N'Kosi Perry being out there. So yeah, just really pleased with that. But, I know that obviously the quarterback position is the most important position on the team, but, don't overlook all the other guys. Jeff Thomas is looking like an all-American wide receiver. Brevin Jordan, even though I know his numbers aren't really great, but as he looks like the next great tight end from the University of Miami. The offensive line has struggled, but they also look like they're stepping up because Miami's run for more than 200 yards in consecutive weeks. The running back stable is amazing. The defensive line is one of the best in America. And I know that obviously you have guys, teams like Clemson, teams like LSU, teams like Clemson, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, teams like that, who is the defensive lines that everybody knows about. Dude, go look at the numbers because Miami, by the numbers, is better, as good as or better than all of those. I mean, Gerald Willis coming back and he's playing really well. Shaq Quarterman just doing Shaq Quarterman things. Michael Pinckney doing Michael Pinckney things. Jaquan Johnson looks like a first-team All-American. Michael Jackson out there. I mean, there's so many great things to look at on this team. And when the quarterback position steps up in its level of play, all of those things kind of come together. So, yeah, I mean, it's going really well, and I think that people are really pleased. So, obviously disappointed with the result in week one. But, moving forward from there, Miami has dominated teams that they should dominate, and that has not always been the case in years past where, inferior teams were able to stick around against Miami. And I know people are going to look at the FIU score and be like, oh, that score was close. Yeah, we're playing second and third stringers for the whole fourth quarter to get them experience. But if we would have pressed on the gas, that would have been a 40 or 50-point win. So Miami is dominating games that they should dominate, winning by 27.5 points a game after that opening loss. So really rounding into shape across the board. So it's not just N'Kosi Perry. There's so many really good things to like. And I'm glad to see that play really come to fruition throughout this season.
So at the point in time that I connected with you on social media, Brad Kaya was the starting quarterback. You were, for the most part, an ardent supporter of Brad Kaya. N'Kosi Perry, N'Kosi Perry, if he fulfills his potential in a reasonable manner, could be the best Miami quarterback since.
Yeah, no, this is a conversation that we've had for a long time. I would say he could be the best Miami quarterback since Ja'Cory Harris, if not going back further. I mean, there's really nobody on the in-between who I mean, and they're fine, you know, and anything, but like I think that the N'Kosi Perry's ceiling is higher than Brad Kaya's. And that was with Brad Kaya being the all-time career-leading passer, almost throwing for 10,000 yards in 3 seasons. Like Brad Kaya was very good. I'm not disparaging him, but I think that Perry has the talent to be better. Obviously, the production and performance needs to meet that, but I think that, you know, if you look back to the FIU game, that slant bang 8, whatever you want to call it, I think it was like a skinny post. It was like a bang 8. So, you know, 3-step drop, hit that right foot in the ground, and then you're going to throw that ball right on time. That throw to Lawrence Cager for that first touchdown against FIU was a throw that you don't see often in general. And N'Kosi Perry has the arm talent and ability to make throws like that and make throws that very few players of that position can make. And if he continues his current progression, I think that he can be a really, really special player here.
Let's remind everyone on the live chat while you guys are commenting to each other and arguing. We've got Cam on the line here from State of the U, and let's take advantage. So if you've got any specific questions on Miami football or this game against Florida State, fire away. I am monitoring the live chat. So Cam, can you think of a time in which you were campaigning for a quarterback or you wanted to see the backup in play and you had this type of excitement or feeling about the next guy getting the shot that you've been anticipating? Has there been a time when maybe there was that second guy waiting in the wings that was kind of stuck behind the incumbent, but you and the fan base were waiting on that day to come?
No, not really, because I mean it's pretty much been one guy, and then they stick around for a while. So whether it's Brock Berlin, whether that's, I mean, it was really Ja'Cory Harris again going. You know, when Robert Marr was a redshirt freshman and Ja'Cory was a true freshman at Miami. You know, back in like what was that? 08, 09. 09, yeah. But we'll go all the way back to then. So, I mean, I think that would be the time, really. So, again, the comparison or, you know, who could be the best since, I think it would be the same kind of thing, you know, since Ja'Cory Harris. So that would be the similar kind of a time. So, yeah, you know, we've seen some really great things. We've seen proof positive of the kind of talent that N'Kosi Perry has for the Hurricanes. And hopefully he's able to maintain his level of play. And, again, a record-setting high school quarterback. He's really developed well. It's taken some time for him to really kind of settle in here in Miami. But, yeah, I mean, he's a kid who can play the position well. He can make every single throw that you want. So, yeah, you know, I'm very excited for him. I think that the fan base is very excited as well. And it just, you know, the floor gets raised and then, you know, the ceiling it's not even the roof anymore. You know, to quote Michael Jordan from North Carolina, like the ceiling, I don't think that there is a ceiling. So, I mean, it's just, it's stratospheric, sky high. So, you know, we can get as high as up there with our performance as possible. So, yeah, you know, just having N'Kosi Perry out there is just, I think it could be a transformational move for this team, and I'm very excited about it.
I don't know if you guys down there, in addition to the turnover chain, have kind of an addendum or a super turnover chain, or when you turn that instantly into points, which happened 3 times against North Carolina for the first time in, I think I heard, since 2000, with the last time that happened in Miami, 3 touchdowns converted from the turnover chain. The defense is playing lights out for the most part.
Yeah, no, that was the first time in a long, long time. I think it was like 2000 or 03 since Miami had 3 defensive touchdowns in the same game. And, you know, beat down a bad North Carolina team just the way that a good team should. Yeah, so, I mean, it was a little different. Some people have talked about the fact of, you know, there is not a secondary thing for the touchdown to go along with the turnover. I did see one of our readers on State of the U. He wrote either a comment or a fan shot, and he said, okay, we should bring back turnover chain volume 1, and you should wear both. So 2 chains. So you get the IBIS chain and then you get the U chain both if you score a touchdown on your created turnover or returned turnover. So I think that could be a fun thing. But even, you know, absent that, the defense has been really strong. You know, the best pass defense in America, the most tackles for loss in America, the most tackles per loss per game, the nation's leading defense or third down defense. I think that teams are teams are converting like less than 13% of third downs against Miami. And that was a point of emphasis. And, you know, Miami's offense is also converting way, way more third downs than last year. I think it's up to 48%, up from 31% third down conversions for Miami's offense. So, yeah, the defense is just they're playing really strong. Players on every level look amazing. Joe Jackson and John Garvin, the starting D ends, both look like first-round draft picks. Gerald Willis III, returning from a leave of absence at defensive tackle. He's been a beast among men. He's been absolutely unblockable. He's tied for the nation's lead with in tackles for loss. Every week I just tweet out, he's making himself money for the NFL draft, and all the NFL draft analysts around from any kind of website or even from NFL.com are saying, yes, he's, the number 2 graded or number 1 graded defensive tackle in terms of pass rush. He's disrupting all these plays and things like that. So at every level of the defense, they're really stepping up, and then actually starting to get more turnovers and take advantage of the situations that were there is obviously a positive. So yeah, maybe we'll bust out the 2 chains if anybody was able to return an interception or a fumble for a touchdown. But even absent that, Miami's defense is playing really, really strong, and I think that's a good thing as we go into the heart of ACC play, and obviously this week against the rival Florida State Seminoles.
Cam Underwood joining us from State of the U, and please join him there for Miami football coverage with the Canes lining up against Florida State coming up this Saturday. So are we down to the offensive line? Are you pleased with every unit? Do we narrow this down to an offensive line issue of whether Miami's going to be good this year or great?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I see, honestly. The offensive line, they're stepping up to being, at least average, and that's resulted in Miami running for more than 200 yards in consecutive weeks, which is a thing that has not happened in a while. So it's not perfect. The tackles can get beat clean on pass rushes. Both the left tackle, Tyree St. Louis, and right tackle, Navon Donaldson, we've seen them get beat, and not even touch the defenders as they're going speed rushes around the corner, which is a problem. So they need to fix that. But overall, I think that the play of the offensive line is starting to come together. Benzel Bulware starting in place of Jahair Jones at left tackle, so a little bit of a switch there. And then you have other guys like freshman DJ Scaife, who can play outside or inside, but he's pushing for playing time as well, and also rotating in on the offensive line. So I think that that's been a big, step forward for Miami's offense. And then, yeah, I mean, one of, if not the best wide receiver groups in America, and that's even without Amon Richards, who continues to battle injuries. One of the best running back rooms in America, obviously, and they're playing like that. 2 freshman tight ends who are who were the best at their positions in last year's recruiting class. And Brevin Jordan, the new starting tight end, is playing like the next great thing at, tight end university, because Miami is tight end U, and you can look at any NFL roster through the course of time to, be proven on that. And like I said, defensive line, linebacker, secondary, everybody's really stepping up. Everybody's really buying in. Kicker, we have a freshman there, and he's doing okay so far, 4 for 5 on field goals and 27 for 28 on extra points. The punter situation needs to get addressed, because Zach Fiegels is not even as good as last year, and he wasn't really great last year. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think that offensive line definitely is going to tell the key for this season, because if there's time to throw for N'Kosi Perry and there's room to run for these running backs, well, he and the running backs, there's very few teams who can keep up with Miami's skill talent. So, yeah, I think the offensive line is really going to be a thing that is a barrier between being good or great, and also attrition and depth, because Miami's already seen injuries impact this season. Amon Richards hurt his knee in the opener against LSU, and it's not played since. Jaquan Johnson missed the last 2 games, but he's probably going to come back this week. Shaq Quarterman rolled his ankle last week against North Carolina in the first half, tried to come out in the second half, couldn't go. His replacement, Mike Smith, hurt his leg in the second half against North Carolina, but all those other guys are going to be back. But what if they're not? What if Michael Jackson and a cornerback gets hurt? What if Shudder Redwine or another guy in the secondary gets hurt? So that depth is going to be a thing that could be a factor as well. But between offensive line and depth, I think those are the really 2 issues that Miami has to kind of fight through and overcome, through the course of the season.
We've got Steve Helwick waiting in the wings. He joins us from the University of Texas campus station, also the Daily Texan, to talk Texas, Oklahoma. We'll do Florida State, Miami justice right here with Cam first and foremost. All right. It's Florida State week. So give us, well, it's always your best, but in regards to this being the rivalry of rivalries in terms of your lifespan, your fandom, and why this is a special game, regardless of the particular plight of these specific teams in 2018.
I mean, it's Miami and Florida State. I mean, over the course of the last 30, 35, 40 years, it's been one of the preeminent rivalries in all of college football. I mean, just the NFL talent on both sides of the ball every single year. Even 2013 when Florida State won a national championship and beat Miami 41-14. That game was 14-all in the first half. Florida State scored before the half. Duke Johnson broke his ankle, and then they really blew us out. But I mean, it's just anywhere you look. I mean, you just think of iconic moments, all the wide rights, the wide lefts, the screen pass to Willis McGahee. Big time players make big time plays in big time games from Santana Moss. Everybody says that, the halftime I'm hurt dog speech. I mean, just and everybody knows that. I mean, everybody knows those things. So, I mean, like Miami, Florida State is iconic. And it has been because, both teams are major national brands, multiple national championships, Miami with 5, Florida State with 3, epic rivalry games. I mean, superstar players on both sides, whether you're talking about Peter Warrick, Santana Moss, the late Sean Taylor, John Vilma, Derek Brooks at Florida State, Chris Winkie in a Heisman season at Florida State, and all kinds, Dalvin Cook, who single-handedly beat Miami 3 times, Jameis Winston, and all kinds of other dudes, Jimmy Graham, Jeremy Shockey, Bryant McKinney, the list goes on and on and on. So between the games and the players, that has propelled this rivalry into the forefront of college football fandom. So, through the course of me being associated with the University of Miami since the year 2000, when I was a freshman at UM. I mean, it's just been great. I mean, Miami won for the first time in 6 years or 7 years against Florida State my freshman year. That was the 2000 Jeremy Shockey game, if you remember that, on that next to last drive. Because Florida State got the ball afterwards and they came back down. But I mean, that was, 8 million degrees at the Orange Bowl. I remember the first time I ever heard the Seminole War chant in person. And it was 85,000 people screaming at the Orange Bowl after a sack or something. And he had the one drum major stand up, and they were in the upper deck of the old Orange Bowl in the open end zones. I can see it like it was yesterday. And the one drum major stands up in front of the band, and he plays that whistle. And I don't know where they get these whistles from, but you can hear this whistle for miles away. Deep, 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 deep. And they just cue up, and the drums have a fill before the pickup. And it just hits this downbeat. It was this wall of sound. And 80,000 people shut up because there was just this hot fire being blown from the upper deck stands at us from the Seminole band and everything. And it's just, I mean, if you're a college football fan, this is a game that gets your blood going. If you're a Miami or Florida State fan, whether you went there or not, whether you've just been a lifelong fan or not, this is a game that every year you circle that date on the calendar. It's a destination game. And I know that you have, the gentleman from Texas coming on next. It's like the Red River rivalry. I mean, they know when that is every single year. There's no, is it November 3rd or is it? No, there's no questioning. You know exactly when that is. Miami, Florida State is that exact same thing. So whether the teams are up or the teams are down, whether Miami is going to win a championship or Florida State, it doesn't matter. It always is going to be a tightly contested game. Guys are going to play harder. They're going to try harder. They're going to execute better because these are guys they played with and against all the way back from Optimist football. So when you first strap on a helmet at 5 years old, some of those guys were your teammates. Some of those guys were, they played at the other park that you played against, whether it's Washington Park, whether it's Bunch Park, whether it's Scott Lake, whether it's in these places down in Miami or around the state of Florida. The connection is so very tight. So, yeah, I mean, for all those reasons and many more, Miami, Florida State, it is a rivalry that matters. It's an iconic kind of a thing, and hopefully we have an iconic beatdown by Miami on Florida State coming up on Saturday because, we do owe them some get back and they've, stretched out some leads against us in the past. But even when Miami was down, these games were close. So, I do think that Miami's going to win, spoiler alert if you're going to ask me what my prediction is. And I hope that Miami is able to stretch it out a little bit. But, if this game were a touchdown game or a field goal game, I wouldn't be really surprised because these things happen in this kind of a rivalry. So, for, like I said, all the reasons I've said and even more, Miami and Florida State is an iconic rivalry. It's a thing. It's a destination game where if you've never been to, you might want to go to it. It might be a little bit different than going to, Nebraska, Iowa game, and definitely down here because we got a little different flavor down here in South Florida. But no, it's a great game. It's a thing that we always look forward to. And I'm very excited to be in the stands on Saturday.
I encourage everybody who's watching this, whether you're on the Florida State side or the Miami side, or if you're just a college football nerd like most of us on here that love all the big games and the big teams, to search on the channel Miami Florida State preview, and you would find over the last, I'm guessing, 4 to 5 years, previews and also recaps from Cam and I talking Miami Florida State. And we've had some really good discussions talking about the emergence of these two programs way back when, early 80s in through the 80s, and where they both kind of emerged as great powers in college football amongst all the stodge programs that have been around forever, the Notre Dames and Ohio States and Michigans and Alabamas, and where these two just rose up, and especially for a time period from about the late 80s on through for the next decade and a half, where you saw the best talent on the field in one stadium year in, year out, with Florida State and Miami on the field, and just rolling through the names and talking about Cam's hit it from every angle, from recruiting to just venom and healthy respect, healthy hate, and all the various angles of Florida State, Miami through the years up to the current time. And we've had some great discussions on it a number of times. So in terms, Cam, of this particular game, before we talk some Texas, Oklahoma here in a few minutes, have you had much time to sit down and watch Florida State? They got punched in the mouth on opening night against Virginia Tech, and at the point we probably gave Virginia Tech a little bit too much credit, and thinking, wow, they played an amazing game. Maybe they've arrived in the Coastal and they're going to be the chief competitor to the Canes. And then Florida State continued to struggle for another couple of weeks, and even last week, but they maybe got a little bit of momentum in finally eking out a win against a down Louisville team with 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But have you had a chance to track this team, and what's wrong?
Yeah, I mean, and this should come as no surprise. I watch every Florida State game. I don't probably watch them live, but live, I should say, but my TV's right over there. And I have a DVR that can record 3 or 4 things at the same time. And with recaps or replays and things like that as well. Florida State is a rival team. And I mean, especially with, I got my bones, I got my start blogging as a recruiting blogger. So that's a thing that I'm heavily involved in and follow. So obviously the recruiting aspect is a thing that keeps me connected to both schools. But yeah, no, I watch Florida State. And yeah, they're 3-2. And everything, and they got a lucky win last week because of the stupidest play call I've ever seen by Bobby Petrino up late. And with, I know Florida State had timeouts left, but run the ball, buddy. I mean, there was no need to throw that pass, and that ended up coming back to bite them. But realistically, Florida State, without a stretch of imagination, could easily be 1-4 at this time, because Samford FBS team, or FCS, ran out of gas, but after throwing for almost 500 yards against them. Louisville, if Jawan Pass was good at what his last name is, throwing the ball pass, he could have had 4 or 5 or 6 extra touchdowns. I mean, you got guys running wide open through that Florida State secondary. So you see it once against Virginia Tech, and you see it again against Samford, and then you see it again against Louisville. Once is an accident, twice is a trend, 3 times is evidence. And yeah, I think that there's evidence that there's, a porous nature to Florida State's defense that hopefully Miami can exploit. Obviously, with a better and more accurate quarterback back there. Florida State has all kinds of talent, and I went on a Twitter string, a while ago talking about the level of talent on the roster. So it won't be necessarily easy. They do have talented wide receivers. They do have talented quarterbacks. They have talented running backs. They have talented every level on defense. But talent is one thing and skill is another. And I see a lot of talent and a little skill, develop demonstrable performance on the field. So, I think that there are definitely some issues. Florida State can't block anybody, and I think that that's really going to be the downfall for them against a Miami team that is first in the nation in tackles for loss. Like I said already, they're holding opponents under 13% third down conversions. Things like that are really going to come back to bite Florida State. Florida State has been able to throw the ball vertically, however. So when they get to Morian Terry and Naquan Murray and things going up the field, they are explosive in the passing game. If DeAndre Francois has time, it is my hope and goal for Miami to not allow him to have time. So there are some things to like. Obviously, again, their defensive line, big, fast, strong. Across the board, Brian Burns. You have Marvin Wilson, who was a 5-star as a second string or rotating in defensive tackle. You even have guys like DeCallan Brooks, who is Derek Brooks's son. He's not as big or as good as his father, but he's playing very strong right now. Stanford Samuels III in the secondary, Kyle Myers, Levante Taylor. So, I mean, there is talent there, but, I mean, there are some really big systemic issues and things are not coalescing for them early. So I think that those are the things that Miami is going to try to take advantage of on Saturday.
Hey, Cam, before we let you go,
yep.
What did you think of the Willie Taggart hire when it was made?
Yeah, I think that the hire was contingent upon a thing that fell through. And I think that was contingent upon Jim Leavitt and Mario Cristobal coming with him from Oregon to Florida State. And that was what gave me pause, because had Leavitt and Cristobal came down, especially Cristobal is a recruiting ace. He went to Miami, played O-line at Miami. He's a championship football player, back in the 90s and things like that. His sons go to Columbus. He went to Miami Columbus High School, which has put so many different people in college with names that had those guys come with Taggart, I think that this would be a very different situation. And when it quickly was seen that neither Jim Leavitt, the defensive coordinator, nor Mario Cristobal, the offensive coordinator, were coming with him, Cristobal gets the head coaching job, Leavitt stays out there with a raise, I think that changed the entire complexion of the Willie Taggart hire. So, I think that what Florida State bought isn't exactly what they got. You know what I mean? It's like when you buy a television, but it has no power cord, no HDMI cables, has no way to connect to the other things. Like, it's a beautiful thing. It's, 65 inches. It's supposed to be 4K, but now I got to go and I got to get these other things. But it didn't come with everything that I thought it was going to come with. I think that is an accurate description of what I thought about the Willie Taggart hire. I think that he's a decent coach. But he's under 500 for his career. And I know people are going to point to Western Kentucky was a tire fire when he got there. So there's going to be a couple losing years. USF was a tire fire when he got there. There's going to be a couple losing years. Even still, his record against winning teams and ranked teams is not that great. And again, if he had the proper support that he built, because no man is an island, and especially on a coaching staff where you have 10 assistants, those guys matter. And especially in the world of college football, when player acquisition, i.e. recruiting, is the lifeblood of your program, those things matter. And Leavitt and Cristobal not coming was a big blow to, I think, what their coaching staff and their program is going to be. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes afterwards. But was I scared or frightened when they said Willie Taggart was going to be the coach? Absolutely not.
And Leavitt, the former South Florida head coach, is a defensive ace. He was at Colorado, and the aberration of aberrations over the last 5 to 6 years in college football was Colorado jumping up with 10 wins a couple years ago, winning the Pac-12 South, and he was the defensive coordinator. He goes to Oregon. They improved in the advanced metrics on defense by like 70 positions last season, and they're just as good this year, if not better. They're playing really good, and if they wouldn't have had the Bobby Petrino type play calling near the end of the game against Stanford, they'd be ranked in the top 10 and undefeated right now themselves.
Exactly.
All right, Cam Underwood, State of the U. And of course, you go there for all your Miami sports coverage. And Cam, I'll turn that over to you to let people know what's there right now as they prepare for Florida State.
Gotcha. I got two quick things. I'm going to start with my preview or my prediction. The line is Miami by 13.5 or favored by 13.5 points. And I picked Miami to cover. If you put up anonymous blind stat profiles for these two teams and gave them to people would pick the Miami profile team. If you have no name, no context, they would pick the Miami profile team by 3 or 4 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be 3 or 4 touchdowns, but I do think it's going to be substantial. I don't think that Florida State can block Miami. I don't think they're going to convert third downs. I don't think that they fixed the issues in their secondary. And I do think that N'Kosi Perry is going to be able to hit timely throws because guys are going to be wide open, and he's not going to miss them like Jawan Pass did. So give me Miami about 38-20. It should be one of Miami's biggest wins against Florida State. It's going to be Miami's first home win against Florida State since 2004. And so I'm on record saying that. It'll be up on the website very soon. I think that goes up on Friday morning, if not earlier. So that's my prediction and commentary for the game. Speaking of which, we have a story stream up on stateoftheu.com with all of our Florida State Week content from, all kinds of commentary and analysis, including today, the Florida State players that we miss. Chris Ricks. Love you, buddy. 0-5 against Miami. You're my favorite. And all kinds of other things. So you can check me out on Twitter at Underwood Sports. You can check the website Twitter, which I also manage and cultivate, at The State of the U on Twitter. We're facebook.com/The State of the U. And also the website is stateoftheu.com. So whether it's basketball, whether it's recruiting, football, or even non-revenue sports, we try to cover Miami in a 360 kind of a way. So come on over. You'll probably find something that you like. And if you find something that you hate, let us know and we can talk about it. So yeah, State of the U on all kind of social channels, or Underwood Sports is my personal one, or The State of the U on Twitter, The State of the U, Facebook, and stateoftheu.com. We're there talking about Miami 24/7, 365. Come fan with us.